All right, so today we are diving into Black Rifle Coffee Company,
BRCC.
BRCC, yeah, for those in the know.
Right.
You've sent over a pretty hefty stack of info on them, articles, podcast transcripts, even some company bios, and like a whole piece on the controversy from a coffee blog.
Yeah.
What's got you so curious about this company?
Well, they've carved out a pretty unique space in the market. They've built a multi-million-dollar business, and not just by selling coffee,
Right?
but by intertwining it with this very distinct and often controversial brand identity.
Okay, so it's not just about the caffeine kick then.
No,
It's about the image that comes with it.
precisely.
Okay.
And that's what makes this deep dive so interesting. How much of their success is due to genuine innovation, a commitment to veterans, or, a shrewd exploitation of cultural divides.
Are we dealing with a visionary
Yeah.
or a profiteer?
Yes.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
Yeah.
So before we get into like the nitty-gritty of their marketing and the whole controversy, let's rewind to the beginning. Who is Evan Hafer, the mastermind behind this whole operation?
Well, Evan Hafer's story is, to put it mildly, unconventional.
Okay.
We're talking former Green Beret CIA contractor, over 40 combat deployments. I mean, the kind of resume that just screams action movie hero.
Right.
And then, bam, he decides to roast coffee beans in his garage.
That's quite the pivot.
It is.
Talk about taking your skills from the battlefield to the business world.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is how much of Hafer's military background is just woven into the very fabric of BRCC.
Okay.
It's not just a backstory. It's baked into their branding, their marketing, even the names of their coffee blends.
Yeah.
Silencer Smooth, AK-47 Espresso. This is not your average.
Yeah, you don't exactly walk into your local Starbucks and order a tactical roast.
Right, exactly. And that's the point.
Okay.
BRCC is not shy about their pro-military, pro-gun, pro-police image.
Yeah.
It's front and center, and it's clearly resonated with a very specific customer base.
So they find their niche, their tribe, so to speak.
Yeah.
And things start taking off.
Mm-hmm.
But then, as with many stories like this, the controversy starts brewing. Can you walk us through that timeline?
Absolutely. So one of the first major incidents that kind of put BRCC in the spotlight was their 2017 response to Starbucks' pledge to hire 10,000 refugees.
Oh, yeah.
BRCC countered by vowing to hire 10,000 veterans.
Wow, that was a bold move.
It was.
It certainly grabbed headlines.
Yeah, it did. And it really solidified BRCC's image as kind of the anti-Starbucks,
Yeah.
a company that was not afraid to take a stand, even if it meant diving headfirst into the heated culture war discussions that were happening at the time.
And this is where things start to get a bit more complicated.
Yeah.
Because while their bold stance certainly resonated with their core audience,
Yeah.
it also started to attract attention from some less savory groups.
Unfortunately, yes. Photos of Kyle Rittenhouse wearing a BRCC shirt during the Kenosha unrest surfaced, and later a man was spotted sporting a BRCC hat during the January 6th Capitol riot.
Right.
These incidents, understandably, sparked a huge backlash.
This must have been a PR nightmare for the company.
Yeah.
Did they address these incidents at all?
Evan Hafer publicly denounced both incidents, emphasizing that BRCC does not condone violence or extremism of any kind.
Okay.
However, some accuse the company of trying to have it both ways, appealing to a certain demographic while attempting to distance themselves when things got a little too hot.
So they're caught in this tricky position.
Yeah.
Trying to control a narrative that's quickly spiraling out of control.
Yeah.
Did these events have any tangible impact on their boycotts, sales slumps?
It's hard to say definitively, but these incidents certainly fueled a debate about the company's responsibility for the actions of its customers and whether their branding was unintentionally attracting extremist elements. It also highlighted the delicate tightrope brands walk when they choose to engage in politically charged messaging.
Right. Yeah.
It's a tough one.
It is. So we've got this company founded by a veteran, built on this very specific brand of patriotism,
Yeah.
facing backlash for attracting the wrong kind of attention.
Mm.
Where do things go from there?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And to really understand the direction they chose, we need to look at what was happening behind the scenes.
Okay.
Financially speaking.
Right.
Remember, BRCC went public in 2021, which means their financial performance became a matter of public record.
So we can actually see if the controversies
Exactly.
had any real impact on their bottom line.
Right.
What does that data tell us?
Well, it's a bit of a mixed bag, actually. On one hand, their revenue has continued to climb.
Okay.
In 2022, they reported over $100 million in revenue.
Wow.
which is a significant jump from previous years, but
There's always a but, isn't there?
right. Their profitability hasn't quite kept pace.
Okay.
They were operating at a net loss for several quarters,
Hmm.
which isn't unusual for a company in a growth phase,
Right.
but it did raise some eyebrows among investors.
So is this a case of a company growing too fast? Or are there other factors at play here? Could the controversy be impacting their ability to attract new customers or investors?
It's hard to say for sure, but the timing is certainly suggestive. Around the same time that these controversies were brewing, BRCC started expanding their product line beyond coffee.
Wow.
They launched lines of apparel, drinkware, even beef jerky.
That's interesting. It's almost like they were trying to diversify their income streams,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps hedging their bets in case the coffee market became too volatile or the brand image took a hit.
It's a shrewd business move for sure. By expanding their offerings, they're tapping into different markets,
Right.
appealing to a wider range of consumers. They're also creating a more immersive brand experience. It's
Yeah.
not just about the coffee anymore. It's about buying into a lifestyle.
So they're diversifying, they're growing, but they're also facing some financial headwinds.
Yeah.
What does all of this mean for the future of the company?
Well, that's where things get even more intriguing. In early 2024, Evan Hafer steps down as CEO.
Like the founder and face of the company walks away,
Yeah.
right as things are getting really interesting.
Exactly. His replacement is Chris Monzalewski,
Okay.
a former Marine with a very different background.
Okay.
Monzalewski comes from the world of big consumer brands. Marscraft, he's a marketing and operations guy.
So a shift from the charismatic, outspoken veteran
Yeah.
to a more seasoned corporate executive.
Mm-hmm.
Does this signal a change in direction for the company?
It's certainly possible Monzalewski brings a different skill set to the table. He's got experience navigating large, complex organizations, optimizing operations for profitability, and perhaps most importantly, building brands that appeal to a mass market.
So could this be a sign that BRCC is trying to move away from the niche, potentially polarizing image they've cultivated
Mm-hmm.
and go for a more mainstream appeal?
It's a plausible theory. After all, if you want to truly scale a business, you need to reach beyond your core base. But that's a risky move, especially when you've built your success on appealing to a very specific group of people.
Alienating your loyal customers to chase a wider market is a tough balancing act.
Absolutely. And it raises a lot of questions. Can BRCC maintain their brand identity, that blend of patriotism, military culture, and, let's be honest, a bit of in-your-face attitude,
Right.
while also trying to broaden their appeal?
Or will they have to sacrifice some of their core values in order to achieve mainstream success?
Right.
It's a classic dilemma for companies that start out niche and then try to go big.
And it's a dilemma that goes beyond just business strategy. It taps into deeper questions about identity, authenticity, and the role of values in a consumer-driven world.
So we've got this company that's trying to kind of reconcile their hardcore brand identity
Yeah.
with the realities of a market that demands
Right.
a little more nuance. It begs the question, can a brand be both fiercely patriotic and inclusive at the same time?
It's a fascinating question.
Is that even possible?
And one that a lot of brands are grappling with, not just BRCC. You know, I mean, we live in a hyper-polarized society where everything seems to be viewed through this political lens.
Yeah, it's like every purchase is a statement.
Right.
A vote.
Sad.
To the kind of world you want to see.
Consumers are increasingly aligning their purchasing decisions with their personal beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
They want to buy from companies that share their values.
Right.
And that puts brands in this really tricky position.
Yeah.
On the one hand, there's a huge incentive to kind of take a stand, to be vocal about your values, to attract those passionate, loyal customers who will champion your brand.
Right. Attract your tribe.
Exactly. But on the other hand,
There's the risk of alienating a whole swath of potential customers who don't agree with you.
precisely, and that's that tightrope that BRCC has been walking. They've built a very successful business by appealing to a very specific segment of the population, veterans, conservatives, gun enthusiasts.
Right.
But as they've grown, as they've kind of entered the public market, they've had to confront the limitations of that approach.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to figure out if they can expand the tent
Yeah.
without losing the people who set it up in the first place.
It's a perfect analogy, and that's where Monzalewski's leadership comes into play. He's got the experience of building brands that appeal to a mass market. But can he do that without stripping away the essence of what made BRCC successful in the first place? Can he thread that needle?
It seems almost impossible.
It's tough.
It's like asking a heavy metal band to suddenly start playing pop music.
Right.
their hardcore fans would revolt.
Well, maybe it's not about a complete genre change,
Okay.
but rather finding a way to create music that appeals to a wider audience without sacrificing their core sound.
So how do you do that?
Right.
How does a brand like BRCC evolve without alienating its base? What are some of the strategies they could employ?
Well, one option is to double down on what they're already good at.
Okay.
Community building.
Mm-hmm.
BRCC has done an excellent job of creating a sense of belonging, a sense of shared values among their core customer base. They could focus on expanding that community, welcoming new members who might not necessarily share all of their political views, but who appreciate their commitment to veterans, their quality products, and their overall ethos.
So it's about emphasizing the common ground,
Mhm.
the shared values that transcend the political divide.
Exactly. And it's about highlighting the positive aspects of their brand identity, the patriotism, the sense of service, the camaraderie, without necessarily getting bogged down in the more divisive political rhetoric.
Focus on the mission, not the talking points.
Exactly. And that's something that Monzaleski seems to understand. He's talked about wanting to make BRCC a brand that unites, not divides.
Okay.
Whether he can actually pull that off remains to be seen, but it's a goal worth striving for.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Black Rifle Coffee Company, what's the final takeaway? Are we dealing with a visionary or a profiteer?
Honestly, I don't think it's that black and white.
Okay.
BRCC is a complex case study, a company that's tapped into a very specific cultural moment, a time of heightened political division, and a growing desire for brands that reflect our values. They've made some missteps along the way, but they've also achieved remarkable success.
They've shown that a brand can be built on something more than just a product, that it can tap into deeper emotions, a sense of belonging, a shared identity.
Absolutely. And whether BRCC can continue to thrive to navigate this increasingly complex cultural landscape to evolve without losing their soul, well, that's a story that's still being written.
And a story we'll be watching with great interest.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And remember, the next time you reach for that cup of coffee, think about the story behind the brand. It might be more complex and more fascinating than you realize.